Okay, it's Grandpa Skid with you again here. This beautiful evening under the beautiful sodium lights. And we will give you now Chapter 6 of the Rhylian Raven. The question, the lovely witch said, is what to do with you. Our interest in this whole affair ended with him, Clintan said, pointing at Sorrow's corpse. Let us go, and we'll forget the whole thing. Yes, but now you know about the Raven. We don't know anything about the God's damned Raven, other than that Sorrows wanted it, said Levan. Yeah, we don't know nothing, Eli added. Well, that's all fine. But the fact is that even if Sorrows really is dead, there are many wizards out there who would love to get their hands on this little statue, she said, indicating the small figure in her hand. I think I would prefer it if there were nobody left alive who knew about it. I do regret this, gentlemen, she shrugged, but I'm afraid you have to die. Lightning started crackling from her fingertips. Figuring I would be next after she finished with the 3 warriors, I contemplated jumping out the window and making a run for it. Trouble was, I knew she would track me down eventually. Nope. The only way to secure a healthy future was to act now. The one thing I had going for me was that she didn't know I was free now. That holding spell must have died when she shoved a dagger through her partner's heart. I stood up and retrieved my own dagger from my belt and aimed carefully and quietly. With all my might, I threw the weapon at the middle of her back. My throw was true, and the blade flew unerringly at the murderous witch. And then it bounced off an invisible barrier, never touching her. The dagger caromed halfway back to me and landed with a thud on the floor. At the same time, the force of the impact knocked the witch forward. This did her no damage, but it did serve to make her angry. She turned to face me with hatred and raised her hands for a deadly spell. But in her anger, she lost her concentration on the 3 warriors. Finding themselves no longer pinned, they drew weapons and leapt forward, realizing, like me, this was their only chance to stop her. Hearing the weapons being drawn, the witch recognized her mistake and went to draw her own dagger, but it was uselessly out of reach on the floor. Levan was the first to reach her and impaled her with a mighty thrust of his longsword straight through the chest. Eli was next, sidestepping Levan and stabbing into her left leg, but Clintan made sure of the job. Taking his time while she was pierced in place, he swung his broadsword and removed her pretty head from her pretty neck. The 3 backed away from the headless corpse and made whatever good luck signs they knew to ward off wizard curses. Well, that was a hell of a night's work, I said, looking over to the 3. The stink of blood was becoming overpowering, and I wanted out of there. If it's all the same to you, I'd just as soon... I stopped talking as I realized Eli was reaching for the raven in the witch corpse's hand. I turned away with my hands over my face, but nothing happened. Eli stood grinning with the raven in his hand. The white hare was right. It doesn't do anything at all, said Eli. Since he won't be paying us what he owes us, Eli pointed at Sorrows, we should take this and try and sell it. You have got to be one of the stupidest people I know, said Levan. Screw you, Eli replied. Maybe I'll just take this for myself. With that, he brandished his sword at Levan. Maybe you won't, Clintan said, walking over. We all risk to be here. Yes, but I took the big risk to pick it up from a dead witch's hand. The raven is mine. Now the 3 faced each other. Each turned his eyes from one to another in intense scrutiny. My attention was irresistibly drawn to focus solely on each of their gazes one by one. Eli What are you even going to do with it? The old man said any wizard would kill us just for trying to sell it, Clintan asked. He was lying, Eli replied. Maybe, but you can't deal with this on your own. If we're going to get some coin from this, we'll have to be very careful. I can do just fine, Eli said. Don't be a fool, Levan retorted. Get out of my way, yelled Eli as he swung his sword at the other two. I'm tired of your bullshit and taking your orders. I'm taking this with me and you can't stop me. With this, he tried moving around Levan to get to the door, but the two others moved to block him. Very quietly, I retrieved my dagger from the floor. It seemed like a prudent thing to do, since apparently the violence wasn't over in this room. In fact, I started moving to the window to make my escape. Abruptly, Eli made a warning strike at Clintan, who parried the blow easily, but fast as lightning. Levan took advantage of the distraction to flick his blade at Eli. The blade found Eli's neck and opened it up. Eli dropped both the raven and his sword to put two hands on his throat to try to staunch the blood. It was to no avail. He fell to the floor and bled out almost instantly. Now the two more dangerous fighters faced each other, swords not up at the ready, but with definite tension. I interrupted the moment. As I was saying before, if it's all the same to you, I'd like to get out of here. Someone will be along here any moment to see what all the commotion was about. I have my advance for doing this job, which is enough for me, since I didn't actually get the raven. I don't want anything to do with any magic artifact, and I know how to keep my mouth shut. Also, I helped save your lives when that bloodthirsty witch was going to kill you. How about I just leave now and we call it even? Those two weren't going to take their eyes off each other. Neither made any sound or move to answer me. Well, I'll just take that as a yes, I said, as I put one leg out the window and reattached my harness to the rope. Thief, Levan called out before I could leave. Not a word about this to anyone, understand? That's right, not a word, Clintan added, never taking his eyes off Levan. Not a God's damned word, I agreed. Then I exited through the window and went down the rope to the stable roof. With a flick, I freed my grappling hook and replaced all my gear. I eventually dropped to the ground beside the stable the way I'd come in, and started making my way back home. Actually, I needed a drink after all that craziness. I changed direction and went to the Gem's Heart instead. It was late and the front door was locked, but I went through the secret door on the side and helped myself to some ale. I marked the drink on my account sheet just as Sharky came up from the cellar yawning. Isn't it a bit late for a drink, he asked. Just needed a little something before going to bed, I replied. Tough job, he asked. One of the toughest. Care to share? Nope. I quaffed the rest of my ale, thanked my lucky stars, and then went home to bed to have nightmares about wizards. Shade coughed weakly as Rohan held his head to give him some more water. And that was the last I saw of Clintan or Levan until today. That was easily the bloodiest job I ever took, not to mention the strangest. After that I decided to leave Lorivar. I moved here and there. Finally I ended up with you guys. He put his hand to his stomach, where the wound was, and grimaced. You should really lie still and save your strength. The others won't be too long. We'll have a healer here soon. Maybe. You know, that raven must have been important to someone, or just cursed. 3 wizards died trying to get it, and they were awfully powerful to be able to do the things they did. And then Eli was killed, and who knows who else. Now look at me sitting here. It's definitely a hell of a story. Clintan must have killed me because of the raven. It's the only connection that makes any sense. You're not dead yet, my friend. It makes me wonder why. It makes me wonder what he and Levan did with it. I mean, it was over 5 years ago. They must have tried to pawn it as soon as they could. Neither of them liked magic any more than I did. If they were smart, they would have thrown it into the sea. They were pretty smart, those two. Smart enough to work together to try to get a little more profit out of the whole mess. Maybe so, but would it take 5 years to do it? No, that doesn't seem right. Those two were loners by nature. They wouldn't stay together any longer than they needed to. It all started at the caves, you know. The Caves of Janxrathra.
Yes. Strange that we're actually not too far from them right now. Coincidence?
Could be. It's a big world.
Sometimes not big enough.
Shade paused and grimaced, while another wave of pain washed over him. Even in the firelight, Rohan could tell he was getting deathly pale.
Rohan, I want you to do something for me.
Sure.
I've got a chit for the Bosconian Mercantile in my secret vest pocket. There must be several thousand gold pieces on retainer in my account. Take the chit and my ring here. The money is yours. In return, I want you to find Clintan. Find him and find out what this was all about. It might bring the Shade of Shades some peace.
He smiled feebly, then continued.
And take my ring to the local thieves guild somewhere and tell them what happened.
I'll do what you ask, but I think it's a long shot to find Clintan. I'll try to get a horse, but he's got a big head start.
Maybe so. Try anyway. Try until you think it's enough. The money is yours regardless. If you don't find him, then just keep your eyes and ears open, you know, in case you ever do run past him again.
Okay, I will. Now you really should be quiet and rest.
You were a decent friend, Rohan. I like teaming with you.
Don't talk in the past, Shade. Save your strength. After a moment, with no answer, Rohan checked closely, then bowed his head. Shade was gone.